You hear that? Welcome back to another Wendigo Uncut episode of our podcast today.
Oh, no, you did that wrong. Let's redo that part.
What did I do wrong?
You just did it wrong. You know what? Let me do it.
Okay.
So, welcome back to Wendigo Uncut. Today we're going to be talking about some classic horror films and kind of what makes them considered classics. Hey Oliver, what movies are we talking about?
Today we're going to be talking about pretty awesome, in my opinion, slasher movies like Friday the 13th. We have Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Evil Dead, House of Wax, and then it's not really a slasher, but we're also going to be talking about it. So starting off with Friday the 13th, which is the biggest franchise on our list today.
Yeah.
With 12 movies.
Gotta get to 13.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But Friday the 13th, I'd say, is one of those more classic slasher films with, you know, it brought up the classic in a camp, summer camp, by the lake, that kind of stuff. I personally am not a huge fan of Friday the 13th, but I can appreciate that it's like one of the quote-unquote classics of slashers.
I mean, it is fairly old from, was the first one what, 1970?
1980.
That one.
Up until the present now. Yeah, there's so many films.
Yeah, they kind of, because it's Jason's mother in the first one, and then it's Jason in the second one, and it's Jason in the third one as well. But then it goes a little off, and then he becomes supernatural, and it's
Yeah.
kind of loses the plot at that point.
Yeah.
Also, doesn't he go to hell at one point, and then?
I think so.
I think so.
I don't. Yeah.
I know he fights Freddy Krueger at one point as well.
Yeah.
For their crossover movie.
There was a Jason versus Freddy movie. Yeah. I think it is.
They lose the plot after like probably the fourth one.
Yeah.
There's also Jason X, which is Jason Voorhees, but he's in space. And he's a cyborg too.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't even know where to begin.
And then after that one, they reboot it, right?
Yeah. So after, sorry, I'm reading.
Jason X.
Then it's Freddy versus Jason, and then the 12th one is just a genuine remake of Friday the 13th. So it's not like
the original,
a sequel. Yeah.
All right.
I think that it's, I don't know. Why do you think it's called like one of the classics? Because it's like, in my opinion, I would say it's because it gave the trope of like summer camp killer, like teen.
I would say it's probably like one of like the classics because it's probably like the first, like, because I haven't heard anything like past it. I also like, I'm not very good at like timing things, like dating things, but like, I feel like that was one of the like earlier ones that like got big, that like pushed the slasher genre into like mainstream, like closer to that, which like that's why it's now considered a classic.
No, I agree. And it's like when you go into like any kind of like Halloween store, you're gonna find Jason stuff.
Yeah,
like everywhere.
Also because his mask is very simple. It's just a hockey mask.
Exactly. And so it's just a very recognizable thing. And like, I think that kind of works in their favor of, because it got so popular, it's so recognizable, and like, there's so many takeaways from even just the original film that is like remembered and recognized everywhere, which is good. I will say though that it's a bit of an overkill having that many movies. I really don't think it was smart to make that many, especially because why the hell is he in space now?
As I said, they lose the plot.
Yeah.
Because in one of them, like, he's dead. He died. Like, they kill him.
Yeah.
There's then a copycat killer in one of them. He then gets struck by lightning and then is a zombie.
Yeah, I don't know. And it's like, even if you were to go through like all of the like synopsises of all 12, you really notice where like the shift in losing the plot happens.
Yeah, because I think the like the first couple are considered classics is because they're just like, they're just slasher films. Like there's no like supernatural anything. It's just this person is sneaking around and outsmarting the like campers who generally aren't that bright.
No.
Like they're generally, there's the last girl trope, which that she's generally at least a little competent, and then they generally outsmart the killer by any means necessary. Somehow. I rewatched the original one with a group of friends.
Yeah.
And they weren't scared throughout the whole thing, because like obviously like we knew slasher film, and there was one jump scare right at the end in the dream sequence when when Jason jumps out of the water, where one person got genuinely scared and they felt bad that they got scared at the movie.
No. Well, I mean, it's like, especially with nowadays and like all the horror films being made, whenever you watch back in the day classics, I guess, and then you like actually get scared, you're like, oh damn, because it's like a lot of it's very, very cheesy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the makeup, the whatever is just like laughable.
But the best part about those movies is that specifically they are all practical effects.
Yeah.
I love practical effects compared to where we are now. Almost everything is like special effects, or like a little bit of practical plus a lot more of the like special effects.
Yeah.
Going back and watching those movies, it's really nice to see like you can obviously tell that it's practical effects, and like it doesn't look as good as like newer stuff, but I like the way it looks more.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's really interesting to kind of see like where, or like even just thinking like, oh, how did they do that? You know, because they don't have all that technology and able to kind of like fix it or like make something appear computer wise. It's just kind of like, oh, how'd they do that? I like thinking about stuff like that whenever I'm watching.
Especially like having worked on sets that like we've used those tricks. It's very easy to like point out and be like, oh, I know how they did that. And it makes me feel like better about like oh, you're like, oh, that's how they did it then.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's interesting too, because it's like sometimes you see things and then you might be like curious enough to like search it up and be like, how'd they do that? And then you find a new way to do certain camera tricks or like whatever, and it's like, oh damn, they were kind of smart low key back then.
Well, because that's all they had. They didn't have special effects. They had to make it work.
But yeah, I just mean like,
and I'm okay, back to the first Friday the 13th movie. There is one part, there's only one part that I'm like, okay, hold on. It's when the mother gets decapitated.
Yeah.
It's because it's like, oh, the slow machete in slow motion, and then it's just like, it just explodes. Like, what?
Yeah, because that's how a human body works.
Yeah.
Duh.
And that's the only one that's the only one in the movie that actually seemed like very unrealistic.
Yeah.
The rest of them actually seemed pretty like good kills too.
Yeah, and honestly, I haven't been able to actually watch the 2009 remake of the first one, but
I also have not seen that one.
But I'm kind of like curious to see like how it's upgraded, I guess. Like
kind of like watch them back to back, see the differences.
Because it's like because I haven't watched the newest one, I guess, quote unquote.
I haven't watched a lot of them. To be perfectly honest.
I mean, I've watched like the first 2 or 3, I think.
Before they lost the plot.
Yeah, which I don't know if I will watch the rest of them. I'm gonna be so.
It's also so much large time commitment.
Yeah, and I fear that I would be laughing too hard. But I want to know if it's like, 'cause you know how sometimes people will say, "Oh, we're gonna make a remake of this," but then completely change the original plot.
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, you didn't remake it, you just rewrote it. It's not the same thing.
Well, okay, so in some of those, you took the same location and you took some of the same characters, but then it's a completely different movie.
Yeah.
So like, it's a retelling of the story. Would be closer to what it is.
Yeah, and it's like I feel lied to when someone's like, "Oh yeah, it's a remake," but then it's not like the exact same plot.
It's technically a remake, but like not the way you not the way you wanted it to be.
Exactly, and I don't know if that's just a me thing or my little stickler for rules or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, would you ever be interested in like completely watching all 12 of them and like comparing, or is that something you're like, F no?
Okay, personally, the slasher genre, I'm like, the Jason Voorhees, like the Friday the 13th movies, I'm like, I'm not against them, but like I don't care enough. I don't really care.
No, yeah. I kind of agree. Like I said earlier, I'm like, I'm not the biggest fan of this franchise. I'm more into like other kinds of horror films. But I don't know. Maybe it's like if I'm so bored one day that I just watch all 12.
Okay. The one way that I would do it is, so at my setup, I have 2 monitors, and when I'm playing games with some people, we'll generally have a movie on the second monitor that we all watch. Oh. So that's really the only way that I'd watch it. And I look over and I just laugh because like some of them might be scary. I don't know. I haven't seen them. How would I know? I'd probably just look over and be like, what the hell is going on? Like, what's happening here?
I feel like that'd be even worse though, because especially if you're not paying like 100% attention.
I mean, like, okay, but like the originals, like the slasher films, like I've watched them. I watched the first one in the background, and like I didn't lose any plot. I knew the plot. Jason's mother killed all the people at the camp. And the slasher films are like Greek tragedies. Everybody dies, except for one person, generally.
That's pretty much it. Well then, we can move on to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is arguably kind of not on like the same scale of Friday the 13th, but it's another one of those kind of quote unquote classic slashers, I guess, where it
I mean, they both got video games, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Texas Chainsaw Massacre came out with 9 films. So
that's still a lot,
but not as high as 12. I think if I had to choose, I would probably pick Texas Chainsaw Massacre over Friday the 13th because of like just kind of the plot of it being like I would genuinely be terrified to be in that kind of situation.
Because isn't it more people that are killers? Isn't it the entire family?
Yeah, and just like the set and location of where they're at. Like,
yeah, because aren't they just like in a farm in the middle of nowhere?
Yeah, and it's like once you're kind of in that farm with that family, there's literally like slim to none chance you're getting out.
Like where are you gonna go?
And they're gonna find you, and that's the really scary part. Like that.
I mean, if you just start, if you just start walking in one direction, like what are the chances that they start walking in that same direction? As long as you like cover your tracks.
I guess it's freaky and scary, and even though it was made, the first one, where does it say? The first one was made in 1974.
3 years before Friday the 13th? Yeah, because Friday the 13th came out in 1980.
Yes. So,
which one was more popular, you think? Because did Friday the 13th piggyback off of the original Chainsaw Massacre?
Maybe, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, because, yeah, Friday the 13th was 1980s, and then 1974 was Texas Chainsaw.
1974? So 6 years before.
You know what?
I've still heard more people talk about the Friday the 13th series.
Yeah.
And they bring it up more.
Yeah, because it's like I had mentioned how, like, when you go into certain Halloween, or really any Halloween store, you'll see a lot more Friday the 13th stuff than Texas Chainsaw stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like Friday the 13th has a lot more of those kind of iconic and memorable locations, characters, audio.
Yeah, because the Texas Chainsaw Massacre has like what? The only thing is like the mask and the chainsaw.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also Friday the 13th also has that, but I feel like the hockey mask is more recognizable and more like connected to him because like it's just like a regular like thing that people had, like it's a hockey mask.
Yeah.
But the Chainsaw Massacre mask is like a burlap sack that's like cut
/ person.
Yeah,
face.
it's like,
so it's like
it's a bit more specific.
Yeah, and like
which like if you saw it, you'd be like, oh, I know what that's from, but it's not as like widely like spread as like just an easy like hockey mask from like that time period.
Yeah, and because like when referring to like Jason and then like Leatherface, which is quote unquote the killer, the main one at least,
but it is the whole I haven't seen any of them, so
it is the whole family though. Like it's like a really stereotypical like in ick family, which has its own bad thing in itself.
It was the 70s.
It was. It basically was just this story of this family who has this son who is Leatherface, who's like known as like kind of like a quote unquote like freak, I guess, and like
a psychopath
kind of. So like he was forced to kind of live in the basement and like
because he was disfigured, right? That's what it was.
Yeah, like his face, something was like wrong, something with scarring or something like that.
Because that also happens to Jason, is that he's a disformed child.
Yeah, so I don't know, or I don't remember if it's because he's disfigured or if because he's just kind of like not like mentally right, because I know he doesn't talk, so he just only like grunts and stuff.
I mean, Jason also doesn't talk.
Yeah, but like usually Jason doesn't make humane noises, I guess.
Yeah, he's also not shown very much.
No, but
compared to someone like Michael Myers, who like you see a lot in the distance, he just kind of like walks, just like, okay.
Yeah, honestly.
You see him a lot more in comparison.
Yeah, basically it's like a group of friends who wanted to go on like this like little getaway, but like their car breaks down. That
the classic
slasher, and so they need to basically find their way to this farmhouse, and they find them, and then they're like, oh, like we can take care of you. Come in our house.
The classic like very nice Southern family, which like you'd think is nothing wrong, but then they've got a secret. Like, oh, who could have seen this coming?
So yeah, so the whole entire family is like all of them are cannibals basically.
Yeah.
So like they eat other people, and so like the basement where Leatherface mainly resides, because he's the one who actually like does majority of like the killing and like hacking and whatever.
Oh, so he's an artist.
You could say that, I guess, but in a way. But yeah, because I just remember like one scene. It was like when like the final two, like when that group of friends actually stumble upon the basement, being like, oh damn, like this is bad. Like this girl's boyfriend gets his legs completely cut off, and then his legs are like the dinner. The guy's girlfriend, they're like the final two left. The final girl, and then her boyfriend. Obviously, she's the one who makes it out, but she got like
obviously only one person gets to only one. Only ever one person.
No, can't have more than one main character. But
they're always all main characters, and then they die off, and you're like, well, not that one, not that one, not that one.
But she gets like sedated, and she like can't really like her muscles are weak or something, and so she's like,
that happens when you get sedated.
Yeah, and so like she gets forced to like sit at this dinner table with her like legless boyfriend, and like his legs.
So the husk is just sitting in a chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's still alive, by the way.
I mean, yeah, he's probably actively bleeding out, but yeah.
Yeah. The family tries to like force feed her boyfriend's legs, and I just remember like the first time I watched it, I was like, ooh, wow, this is a lot.
And I guess that's why people would be like, I guess that's why like they're popular, because like it's like this, it's so graphic, like that's why those like slasher films, because like that doesn't sound more of like a slasher, that like that specific scene sounds more of like a gore kind of thing. And I guess like that's the reason why people like this, I guess. They like seeing the like over the top gore. It was the 70s and the 80s, you had to like be over the top, I guess, to get your film to like do much.
Yeah, and like a lot of people who do love that kind of genre of horror where it's just like in your face shock value type stuff, like a lot of it does kind of involve gore with the human body, because people just love being safe in their own homes, but then seeing like, oh my gosh, that could happen to like me as a human being.
I absolutely hate that. I don't like graphic things, like graphic movies. That makes me feel weird. Like I'm fine with it. Like it's not like I'm not gonna throw up at the sight of blood, but like I don't like watching it.
I think that depending on who you are as a person, that kind of genre of horror movies can and cannot appeal to you. Because it's like, I love horror movies, but I cannot do with like super realistic gore. I won't throw up or anything, but I'll feel really sick really fast.
I just don't watch horror movies very often.
And that's fair. Like it really isn't for everyone. I think I like looking at horror movies once for like those shock values, the plot, the story, like what happens in it. But then I also like when a horror movie becomes like a favorite for me, it's because of like everything that goes into it. You know, how do they do this? How do they do that? And like I find myself watching behind the scenes of like certain franchises, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool that they do this, this, and this. A lot of the time, there's majority of people who do like horror movies aren't huge fans of like the super gory ones.
Yep. Personally, like I don't like super gory movies, and that's why like, I don't watch slashers very often, because like there's no story. I like a plot generally. Like if I'm watching a movie, I want like development. But in like the like original slashers, like the original Friday the 13th and like the older slashers generally, it's just killing.
Yeah, and
which I mean, like as a background like watch, I'm like putting it on the background, like I'm not missing anything. Like I'm missing nothing, as opposed to like putting on like something like more story driven, like a drama or something along those lines.
Yeah, and that's why I really do think that like there needs to be way more genres like under the horror umbrella, because you're right, like just. And you know, we do have a few. We have like slasher, we have thriller, sci-fi, whatever. But
that is why I love thrillers, because it's less of just killing and gore and a lot more of like suspense, a little bit more story and development of like who is this that is killing us? Who is this that we're watching like this happen to?
I agree, kind of. I mean, I don't know. I think I also honestly just need to like just watch it for myself. I like majority of the time, because you know, someone can like totally gas up like Friday the 13th, the space one, but then if I watch it, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, like I feel like most slasher movies aren't like a like must watch. Like, you're not going to get super invested. I mean, like, there might be some out there. I just haven't been recommended them or watched them.
Yeah.
But some of them are, you can watch them if you want. I've never been like, you need to watch this slasher film. And it's like,
I feel like with slashers, opposed to like other kinds of horror movies, when they do have so many added movies to them, like especially Friday the 13th, you know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, Scream, whatever, it's more like Halloween and Scream are not really slashers. Like those definitely have a little bit more of a story to them.
Yeah, those are a bit more suspense.
Yeah.
Like the original Scream might be considered a slasher, but like,
yeah, but
it's a bit more of like a suspense. You're like, who is this person? What are they doing?
But like with, you know, Friday the 13th, Texas Chainsaw, it's more focused on the killer rather than the story that's happening.
Yeah.
Like it follows the monster instead of like how other horror movies will focus on making you root for the actual survivor characters to live from the monster instead of just focusing and only really learning and kind of whatever for the killer or the monster. I think that's the huge difference between slashers. So it's like slashers are more bad guy based instead of like plot character survival based.
Yeah, I think that's why I don't like slashers as much.
And that's like fair. Again, I'm kind of like on the fence 50-50 either side. But now I think we should move on to Evil Dead because honestly, Evil Dead has 5 films, but then there's also like a comic about Evil Dead. I believe there's short films. There was a television series. There was a video game. There was a musical.
They really capitalized on this one.
They really did.
Instead of just making movies. I mean, Friday the 13th went out a little bit. Like, there's the Friday the 13th and Chainsaw Massacre game. This feels like it's a lot more diversified.
Yeah, because instead of like just having mainly more and more of films, there's literally everything. They made a musical.
I mean, there's probably musicals of the other two, but like, I haven't heard of them.
I haven't either.
I also haven't heard of this one either, so like, I don't know.
To have 5 films, and then there's comics, there's graphic novels, there's films, short films, television series, there's a video game, there's musicals, whatever. Like, that's just a lot for the Evil Dead franchise as a whole. Evil Dead, honestly, I wouldn't really call it like a slasher because I feel like it fits more under kind of the tone of like not necessarily this like entirely supernatural, but it definitely deals with some like possession themes and like otherworldly beings.
Okay, yeah. So it's a supernatural. Is it suspense? Or is it just horror?
Kind of, because it's like the first one was made to be a horror and like just shock value in your face, whatever. As they continued, it kind of turned into
like a comedy?
In a way, yeah.
Like, did they just start going like more and more over the top with their like...
Yeah.
It's like kind of like how Scary Movie makes fun of all of the like horror movies where it's like this trope, but like over the top. Because like, I haven't seen any of the Evil Dead movies. I wouldn't know.
I've seen the first one.
Okay, so you wouldn't know how they like evolved to the like comedy side of it then?
Not really. I mean, from what I did see, actually I've seen the first 2.
Okay.
I really liked the second movie. I won't lie.
Was it for the story or was it for the...
Honestly, like the visuals is what sold it, because it's like the story wasn't awful. It was just like when I went into it, because I actually watched the second movie before the first one, so going into it I was like,
how do we get here?
Like, what the hell did I miss here? What's happening? But I mainly liked it for the ending, but like the entire like 3/4 of the movie I was like lost as hell. I'm like, what's happening? Who are these people? Why is XYZ happening?
Because I feel like the Evil Dead movies aren't talked about as much. Because like I've heard them mentioned a couple times. But, like I've never heard it as much as like Friday the 13th or Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, and I feel like maybe there's a reason, but I have no clue.
I wouldn't know. I don't have any insight on this topic specifically.
Yeah. I mean, I think at some point in time, I might be wrong. I don't know if this is something someone told me, but I believe that there's one scene that like got an award for having like the amount of blood that was used, where it was like, oh, because it was so much blood.
It was like so over the top.
Yeah, but it was like raining blood. and that's why.
So like a record at the time is what you're what you're referring to, I guess. Like that.
Yeah.
This might be very false, but like.
Yeah, I genuinely could be lying, and I just don't know it. But I believe because it was like the devil or something, like got summoned and then blood ran. But I did like that visual. That was a really cool visual, and like it just felt very also like kind of action based towards the end, which like was a weird mix with horror. So I don't know. It's like one of those movies where you watch it and you're like, what?
I mean, isn't an action horror? Isn't that a thriller? Wouldn't that be closer to be considered a thriller?
I guess. Well,
because there's more action, I guess.
But I know that the protagonist, Ash, is very commonly like remembered because that character is pretty iconic for losing an arm and then replacing it with a chainsaw.
Oh, okay.
So that
seems very over the top. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of why I think it definitely started to go into more of kind of like
it went a little off the rails.
Like not to fully be taken seriously.
I would say it lost the plot, but I don't know. Haven't seen them. I've been told that the first one was more serious, and then they started to get more comedic in the later ones.
Yeah, they basically are in this cabin and some kind of like demonic presence lives, I think, in the basement of the cabin.
It's always the basement.
Always.
It's generally the basement, but the thing might be also in the attic. I feel like it's always those two because they're always kind of creepy.
But there's like some kind of like ritual with like this tape recorder and like
of course it's a tape recorder. It's
always that kind of stuff. Everyone from that cabin like basically slowly just dies or disappears. And then until it's only Ash basically left trying to fight this demon off that like possessed his sister, Cheryl.
All right. Seems like there's a lot going on there.
It is. And so it's like I understand why it would be one of those things where people are like, you have to watch it just to at least experience it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to like it, but experience it.
I guess I'll have to put it on the list.
Yeah, I mean, it's really not, like, honestly, I would say, like, the first two, plot-wise, I wouldn't say is, like, breathtaking, amazing, whatever. I just really liked some of the visuals in both the first and second. They were, let's see, the first one was made or released in 1981, and then the second one was 1987. So for that time, I would say I was pretty impressed with it.
Okay.
But, you know, obviously, like we had mentioned before, not as well known or talked about as the other two that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Like, using the analogy of walking into a Halloween store, you might find some Evil Dead things.
It's not like a household name. Like, if you say, like, Jason, or if you see, like, one of those masks, you're like, oh, it's Jason Voorhees.
Because it's like, with Evil Dead, it is the main focus on that protagonist instead of kind of the monster.
Instead of the killer.
Yeah. So, because then he goes on in the other movies to, like, fight more things, I think. But then they also had that very recent the Evil Dead Rise in 2023.
Ooh, recent. Very recent.
Yeah. I was gonna watch this, but then never actually got to watch it in theaters. Still haven't been able to watch it, but I know that this plot is very different from the normal kind of with the character Ash Williams.
Now, do you know if this one's more serious or a bit more like over the top like some of the other ones?
I think this one is definitely more serious, leans into that kind of body horror again. All I really know from watching the trailers is that like a mother gets possessed this time and she's like going after her kids. And I just remember like hearing about like one scene, something where she like that normal like nasty possessed crawl on all fours kind of bones cracking happens. So
now is this considered a remake or is this a sequel? Or is it like a reboot? Because when did the one before this come out? The last one that wasn't this one.
The last one was just Evil Dead, and it came out 2013.
Okay, so 10 years,
yeah.
Which isn't unreasonable, but do you think it's considered a remaster or a reboot?
Honestly, not really.
Because is it a sequel to any of them, or is it its own thing in like with the same like set of like boundaries or rules for it?
I think it's its own thing.
Okay.
With like just in the same
It's got the name. It's got the name tacked onto it.
I guess.
Kind of.
I am really interested in watching it though, because I do want to know if it's like the same entity that comes back, or like if it's something completely different just with the name slapped on it. Which I hate when that happens. But I'm actually seeing now that there are 2 more Evil Dead films to be
made.
There's a 2026 one
Oh,
called Evil Dead Burn. Don't know what that's about.
hope it's about fire.
I hope so too. And then there's an untitled 7th film that's to be announced.
Wait, when did you say that one was for? 2027? Or
No,
just
there was an untitled 7th film.
Oh, untitled 7th film. Okay.
Yeah. So after the 2026 one, there's one.
So we have a guaranteed 2 more.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe, because it said that it was announced that a spin-off film, which is also, so the 2026 one and then the untitled one are both going to be spin-off.
Okay.
And they're both like currently in development.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that should be interesting, because then I think that maybe they might follow, like if I had to like assume, I wonder if they might follow the 2023 one.
Yeah, if that one's more serious, more like story driven, I would hope so. Mm-hmm. Be like build off of each other.
I think the difference between like the Evil Dead franchise and then like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Friday the 13th is I feel like the Evil Dead franchise has an idea what they're doing.
Like they're trying a bit more, is what you're saying, than trying to just like get more films out.
Yeah, because you know what? Okay. Can I just like, there's something I gotta tell you. Like, can I just like vent for a second?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because like it like,
yeah,
that just like reminded me. Okay, so like you had mentioned, it's like they know what they're doing, but it's like with Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw Massacre, it's like they don't know what they're doing and they're just making films, and it's like that is such a cash grab, right? So the film industry, and you know what, that happens so much. It doesn't even happen with horror like movies. It's just there's so much that they do, and they just want more money, and so like they don't have, and it's like, how much more money can you have? Wait, what are you doing? Wait, no! Oh no! So our next topic is House of Wax. They made 3 films. This is technically considered a slasher film. The first one was made in 2005.
Okay, so a bit more recent.
Yeah, and this one is a pretty not super well known. I've watched the first one, and it is very eerie. It really.
Yeah, I've read the synopsis and like the summary of the first one, and it seems very interesting actually. It is still a slasher film like as it says, but it seems a bit more interesting than that. Like there was a bit more backstory to it.
Exactly, yeah, and it really does. It kind of reminds me of almost like the same plot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it's kind of like a town in the middle of nowhere. And
yeah, because it says they were trying to go camping, but like they're trying to go to a football game, and they were camping out.
Yeah.
Or for the first one, they were trying to go to a football game, and they were camping out.
Yeah.
But their car broke down.
Yeah, and then again, classic.
Or their car broke down. One of their parts was cut.
Mm-hmm. And then a pickup truck arrives and basically bring them to the nearby town of called Ambrose. And then the rest of their group headed to the football game while the...
Didn't they actually not go to the football game because they realized they'd be late? At least that's what I remember reading, was that they didn't actually go to the football game.
Well, then that probably was right. This is just what I'm remembering off watching it.
Yeah.
But the town is like visually a huge ghost town. Like no one is around. And the funny thing is, like, at some point they like look around and they're seeing like people inside the places, but they're not moving. They just kind of get really like, what's going on? And when they stop the town's gas station,
yeah,
the main 2 that got brought to the town, a girl and a guy, the guy gets like knocked out.
Isn't it by his... Wait, no, that's when they go... So what I remember reading was there's no one in town, and they say, like, they go to the hardware store or something, or the gas station, and like they couldn't find it. So the guy who we assume to have cut their thing and showed up, offers to sell them one.
Yeah, right.
And then he brings them to his town, his house.
House of Wax.
That's the museum. It might be.
Wax museum.
But all I remember from reading is that he brings him to his house, and his twin brother, or his conjoined twin, is waiting there, and he knocks him out because he went in to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
This is what I remember reading.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, and the girl is sitting in the truck waiting for him to come out with it. She realizes that there's two people, or like something's wrong, so she tries to run, but I think she gets one of them catches up to her.
And then like their other friends, they're like, oh, we're not gonna make it to the game in time, so they go back to the camp. The girl, her name's Carly, she tries to call for help, but
The lines are cut? Oh, the twin?
Cuts her fingers off.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. And then that's like a whole fight in itself. And then I believe one of the friends finds the guy, Wade, in the wax museum.
Oh, yeah, because they knock him out, and then they pour molten wax on him, and then they put him in the museum.
And then when the friend finds him, they peel the wax off his face and peel his face with the wax. Yeah.
I don't like the thought of that.
I don't either.
It reminds me of a scene from one of the Batman movies where it's one of the opening scenes is like the Joker. One of them is like cutting off one of their their victims' faces, get one of the other ones to talk. It's not a great sight.
Yeah.
I don't like the way that makes me feel.
Obviously, he dies of shock because he got his face ripped off.
Yeah. He also probably can't move. I mean, wax isn't that strong, but if you're like, it depends on how thick the wax is.
I guess. I mean, it had to have been hardened enough to peel off, but still soft
to be able to peel.
But then his friend gets decapitated, obviously, because
of course.
Yeah, because the first brother finds him trying to help and then, is like, oh, you're not supposed to do that.
Oh, my bad.
Not okay.
And then kills him.
Yeah. And then I don't know exactly who, but like someone ends up finding like out that it's not just the wax museum that has like wax figures in it, but everyone in the town is a wax figure and everything is made of wax, basically.
Bro's just gotta. Hey, everyone's gotta have a hobby, right? You just gotta have a hobby. His hobby is clearly making wax statues. They might be real people, but they're making wax statues.
Yeah, I guess.
Everyone's gotta have a hobby,
But the main brother basically picks off each friend one by one, and then like of course turns them into the wax figures. But the weird one is like trying to manipulate his brother to like making the wax figures like way more realistic out of the victims.
And that's why they use real people?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't like their mother was like a wax carver and they made like wax statues, and then she dies and the brother wanted to keep it, but the other brother told him, let's make these more realistic. So they started killing people.
Yeah, so
you know, classic motivation.
Yeah.
Just, like, you know what? Let's make these realistic. Let's just pour molten wax over people. Also, those must smell. The town must smell horrible unless the wax keeps in all of that stench.
Well, I'm assuming.
I'm going to assume. Like, but how structurally sound is wax? If they're just like in buildings on a warm day, they might just melt, and then like if they're dead and they've been dead for a while and they've decayed, they might just like collapse.
I mean, if I remember in the movie that I watched, the only building that was like really cold was the actual museum.
I mean, yeah, that makes sense.
So
wax museums are generally held at a consistent temp, or at least a colder temp.
Yeah.
But like the rest of the buildings, though, like what about those? Are there just like wax drops on the ground then? Just like pools on the ground, just like of like wax puddles.
I guess, but. And then in the end, there's an unintentional fire that starts, and that's what actually collapses the House of Wax. So it all burns and melts to the ground, and that's how it basically ends.
Movie sounds a bit more interesting, but it's still just like a slasher, and it's still a gore. It's still just a gore fest, kind of.
Yeah, I mean it's.
But it has a neat twist on it where they're all wax figures, but it's still a lot of more gore, and they all still die except for one person, obviously, or two people.
The siblings.
Yeah, it's just always just gotta kill everyone.
I mean, I personally liked it, but I think I liked it for the same fact as like why I like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, kind of that shock value of, oh gosh, like that's really sadistic and like messed up and stuff.
Yeah, because you're like, ooh, wax. You're like, you're just like, because wax figures are always creepy. They're always like off-putting because they're they're very realistic. But then you're like, oh, these are actually very realistic because they're real people.
They actually, in January 2006, they actually got a lawsuit by the owners of the...
Was it another wax museum? Was it... Were people upset and not going to the wax museum because of this?
No. So what happened was the owners of the Village theme park and Warner Brothers Movie World Australia, they both said that they were going to sue the special effects expert David Fletcher and Wax Productions because of a fire on the set of production.
What?
And...
Okay. What, did they almost lose their wax figures? Oh no, my wax!
Well, I guess how I mentioned that it ends with them burning the wax building down.
Did they start a real fire? Is that
basically
practical?
Yeah.
Yeah, practical effects, baby.
They basically said that they were grossly negligent over the fire, and it actually destroyed part of the Gold Coast Warner Bros. Movie World Studios. The alleged quote-unquote grounds of negligence included not having firefighters on standby and using timber props near a naked flame. So they just
really
set a building on fire and said, hope everything's fine.
They didn't take any precautions. They're like, we're just gonna set this building on fire. Okay, you know what? Good grounds for a lawsuit, I'd say. That's probably fair, considering if it damaged that like the property that they were on and they didn't own it or build it. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. So I mean, that's interesting. It was very popular in its opening weekend. It grossed about 12 million in the box office, 70 million worldwide. It definitely was
a cult classic. So like within its fandom, it's very popular.
Yeah,
like very popular.
This is definitely not one that you would find walking into a Halloween store.
Well, because I feel like there's not like a super recognizable like mask like Jason Voorhees or those things.
Unless they just put out a chunk of wax.
Just a block.
Just a block of wax. But no, I think that there's a genre of horror movies that is like a WTF kind of genre, and I think that this definitely falls.
I don't like those because it's like Human Centipede and like that kind of. I don't like those where you're like, I would have never thought of that. I would have never thought to do that, and you're like, I don't want to think about that anymore.
Yeah.
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, it's under there for sure. But
what about the other two movies?
Yeah, so
when did those come out? And how much did they gross? Because I don't think either of us have seen those, so we can't really talk about them that much. But like, let's see the stats on those.
Oh, so actually, it was different countries of releases. So
okay, so there was just one film?
I guess, yeah. So there was one released in April for Tribeca, May 6th, 2005. These were all in 2005, by the way.
Okay.
May 6th was the United States one, and then July 14th was the Australia one.
Okay.
I thought that there was...
So they didn't they made one film and went, all right, we put our foot in the race.
Oh, okay, wait, no. The 2005 film one is actually a remake of the 1953 film of the same name.
Ah, okay.
But
so is that the one we were talking about, or were we talking about the original?
We were talking about the remake. The original is called Mystery of the Wax Museum.
Okay.
And it was released in 1933.
So that one was old.
So I'm just assuming that it was a genuine full remake.
I would assume, considering it's, 72 years after?
Yeah, it's like almost, like, the 2005 one is like a little bit more modernized, but it's like the exact same plot.
Okay, but it's just made to look better.
It's made to fit more of the 2005.
More of the 2005 like slasher genre, I guess.
Yeah. Because in the first one, The Mystery of the Wax Museum, it's set in London, where the 2005 one is set in, or I think it's technically set in the U.S., but... I
would assume the other one is set in the U.S. because they're going to a football game, and I haven't seen it, so I don't know if it's American football or if it's European or if it's like
American.
football.
Basically, the only difference is that like instead of friends camping out in that town, there's a private tour given to a friend. of the museum, and the museum is like in financial trouble, and so like there's a fire that breaks out.
As wax museums generally are in like Disney World or wherever that one is, where it's like the Hall of Presidents. Yeah. It's like that one, but you're already in a park and you just can go there, so they can like just afford to like keep that open because it's the park and not like a specific you pay to see the wax museum.
Have you ever been to a wax museum?
Nope. I mean, I could. I'm like I could, but I don't care enough.
I have.
Are they pretty realistic?
It was freaky. I'll tell you that much. I definitely was thinking of this movie when I went. That's all I'll tell you.
What, you thought they were gonna reach out and grab you?
They might have. Okay. Some of them looked really good, and then others were like, "That's not."
It's probably based on age and how well they were, and like where they were kept and how well they were like maintained.
All I really remember was just how cold it was in there. It was really chilly.
Yeah, because wax has a fairly low melting point.
Yeah, but
it still gets it's still hot, but like.
Yeah. And then I mean, I was in Florida as well, so.
Yeah, it's pretty warm there, I'd say.
Yeah.
Unlike here, where there's snow on the ground in March.
Like, would you be interested in watching House of Wax?
I might. It's another one of those movies where like it's a slasher film. Like I'd put like the 2005 remake, obviously. I might put that on the second monitor and like as a background thing to watch.
Yeah, and honestly,
like the synopsis, I'm interested enough that I might put it on as like it seems like the kills seem interesting, like fingers getting cut off, poured molten wax. Like it's still probably very graphic.
So would you watch it?
I put it on the background.
Okay.
Again, I don't. Here's the thing: I don't watch many movies. Just watch them.
Okay, that's fair.
I like to put a lot of things on in the background.
I think that, I mean, that's all I have for this episode.
I've got nothing else. We've been talking for a while.
We have. Yeah, I'll get this down. So, that was episode 3 of Wendigo Uncut. Thank you for listening. We have a lot more, so hop in the next episode, okay? Bye, guys.
Where am I?
What?
Where am I?
Wait, you don't know? Wait, you don't know either? I also don't know where I am. Like, I think we're stuck here, but wait. No, you have to know something. What are you doing? Wait, no. Hey, stop. What the hell?